Let's just be very unoriginal and start at the beginning and talk just for a little bit about your boyhood. Growing up in a home of 10 children, you were somewhere kind of in the middle of the pack. Explain for those of so many of us, and probably most, who were not raised in a family with that large of a family, what did you learn from that? What was that like for you as a boy?
Our home roots are everything, and tears sometimes come easy when I go back to those early years in Mapleton. The fondest of my memories of those years is growing up surrounded by farms. My father himself worked for a highway construction company, but our neighbors had a farm, and they didn't have sons of an age that could work. And so our bishop, in fact, his name Oscar Whiting, and 3 other sons, adults, returned missionaries, Ray, Juan, and Gary. And so we were invited at a young age to work on a farm, beginning in sugar beet, thinning sugar beets.
It's hard work.
And my fondest memories is to learn the value of work. And my father, one of the stories I've related over the years, my father and mother wanted the Jensen children to learn to work and the value of work. And he went to Bishop Whiting and said, "I'll pay you to pay them, if you'll just teach them to work and the responsibility."
Having grown up on a farm, I understand a little something about the plentiful supply of work that exists on a farm. So what was it about the experience on the Whiting farm that you think translated into teaching you how to work?
There's a routine, a responsibility that you get up at a certain hour and you show up at a certain hour and you endure 80 rod rows of sugar beets. And then through the hay season and the grain season and then into the harvest. And then too, because father and mother were economically, it was tough with 10 children. And so that was money, spending money and clothes money, enduring to the end. In fact, I have a painting in my home that shows that whole scene of 2 Jensen boys kneeling in the sugar beets and the 3 Whitings in the background. And I've titled it, "Hoe to the End of the Row," with all that connotes and denotes.
That's beautiful. Okay, think back to those early years and all of those experiences on the farm with your parents. Were there key turning points? Can you look back and pinpoint moments, whether the moment was a lesson or just a learning experience with your parent or a loving experience with a sibling or whomever, that you say, that was pretty pivotal for me as a young boy?
One is I have an older brother, deceased, died at age 33. He had polio at about 12, a kind of polio that didn't cripple him, but impacted the lungs. Then later, a dynamite accident, which nearly killed him, but didn't. But the combination of those, he had a weakened constitution. But to this day, I get tender feelings that when Mother and Dad had driven him to the hospital, and Ruth, my oldest sister, gathered us, the children, in the living room. Let's pray. Let's pray for Neil. So that's one. Number 2, my father and mother grew up having heard or read Joseph F. Smith promise that if families will hold a family night. So we didn't have the title Family Home Evening, but we had family nights. A little 4-room home in Mapleton with an old coal stove and Mother cooking over a Monarch coal stove range. And those winter nights gathered as families, games, activities, hide the thimble, button, who's got the button. And Mother, with her Danish background, could cook over that coal stove the most remarkable Danish pastries. So it's the memories of the home and the culture, the significance. And then a third one was, it was just automatic. The Jensen family goes to church. We took up a whole bench.
Of course you did. I love what you said about your sister, that when your older brother, Neil, was in trouble, her first reaction was not just to pray, but to gather her younger siblings to pray, which clearly had to have come from the teachings of your parents and just what you did as a family.
That becomes more visible for my oldest sister, Ruth, because father was what I called a weekend father. Now, that's not to be negative, but with highway construction, he'd leave Sunday afternoon and we'd see him Friday night. Week after week after week. And so mother was father and mother. And with all that's on her platter, Ruth knew how to provide support.
Do you think that that gave you an unusual appreciation for the influence of a mother?
More than I can say. My mother instilled in me a love for words. We had the Reader's Digest, and then we had condensed Reader's Digest books. And I grew up surrounded by an influence, read. We didn't have television. Well, we had the old radio and listened to the old programs. But it was books, to which I attribute to my mother.